Hello YouTube. As promised, this is part 1 of the series about the Ohio Central engine 2912 and 2913. This is the first portion of that video with the history in my memory of the engine. Chapter 1. 1995, July 6, 1995 to 1999. Ohio Central Railroad engine number 2913 was purchased from TDIX in the 1990s. That engine was or is a GP35 that Ohio Central had. Jacobson had several GP35s. That one, 2912 and 2913, were more special because they are childhood engines. The 2912 was a ex-Wabash engine that originally served the Wabash in the early days of its life. Then it went on to be purchased or used by the Norfolk and Western. 2912 and 2913 were both used by the Norfolk and Western until TDIX got a hold of the engines. Chapter 2. Little Boy Memory of Diesels. OHCR 2913 and 2912 were both used in the 90s on the Ohio Central Steel Train, which was a train that originated out of Coshocton, Ohio and Brewster, Ohio, and ran on the ex-Pennsylvania Railroad Panhandle line between Coshocton and Newark and to Columbus. I was little when the 2913 and 2912 were assigned to that train, which was call signed CBT 17A and CBT 17B. The CBT 17A was a train that originated and started in April 17th, which is just a couple days from now, 17th of April of 1992. This would be coming up to the anniversary of the CBT 17A freight train, which stood for Coshocton Buckeye Turn. The CBT 17A was usually powered by GP 9, 10s, and 35s in the 90s. The CBT 17A was a train that came out of Coshocton in the early morning with 2913 and 2912 and usually came through Pataskala, in my part of Pataskala, at 5:30 in the morning. Also, the train was called the Steel Train, the Coshocton Buckeye Steel Train. That train originated out of Coshocton at approximately 3:30 in the morning, which would be 0300 hours in the morning, and they got to Newark about 4:30 in the morning, 4:30 hours in the morning, where it would make a turn and go towards Columbus on the PR, Panhandle, and CNO or BNO North Division. Chapter 4, CBT 17A. The CBT 17A was the childhood train I grew up watching as a kid when I was little. The CBT 17A always had 2912 and 2913. The horn that the engine on the CBT-17A had was a Leslie RS5T and a Nathan K5LA R24 style air horn, which is more commonly known as the horn that was on is on HVSR 701. The 2912 and 2913 were the main power of the CBT-17A. The 2913 was painted up in the rails of Ohio, or for Ohio, under the direction of then Governor George Voinovich, and Governor Taft, which was in the early 2000s, had a lot to do with that engine directly. The 2912 was owned by the Ohio Central from 1995 all the way up to 2010 after a takeover from Genesee and Wyoming Incorporated. Chapter 5. Jacobson Era GP35. The 2912 and 2913 were mainly the engines that were assigned to the steel train and the coal train out of Buckingham Coal in Corning, Ohio. The Buckingham Coal, which was the BOT, and the GLT, were the main coal trains that the 2912 and 2913 was on. The 2913 and 2912 were the mainstay of that power and were sometimes assigned to the Zanesville yard, which was then owned by CSX in the early days. Chapter 6. Chicago Influence. When I was little, here in the 2912 and 2913, there was a song by Chicago, which Cool 101.7 WNKO Newark played, called If You Leave Me Now by Chicago. That song was associated in my little brain when I was little with the 2912 and 2913. The 2912 and 2913 always had the horn that was severely fouled. The RS5T on 2913 always sounded like the horn in the Chicago song If You Leave Me Now. The 2912 was mostly assigned, sometimes occasionally, to the Ohio Central HHL, which stood for the Hebron Heath Local. That engine served the Hebron Heath Local for a long time, and also sometimes was occasionally mated up with the 4218, which is a GP30M, which was rebuilt by Chassis System. Final chapter. Chapter 7 of this small series. The Ohio Central Railroad retired the 2912 and 2913, where they are currently sitting at Larry's Truck and Electric up in McDonald, Ohio, and they were or are up there permanently. You could go view those engines if you sign a safety waiver, saying that the company Larry's Truck and Electric are not responsible for if you hurt yourself or harm yourself. They're up in either Lordstown or up in McDonald, Ohio. The model history will be the final portion of this series. The second portion will be the review. Pay attention and good luck. Tower 1 out.